I wouldn't say alive, but I've been waiting for you, Cowboy Bob. You know what I mean? I've been waiting for
Okay,
you.
I got a pulse.
You got a pulse? Okay.
Yes.
Uh,
Good evening, good
Sex
afternoon,
with
good day.
8-year-old
Welcome
students.
to
These
the
are eight.
Return of the Thinking Man. What is that? What are you airing?
that was that girl. I thought you would like to talk to
Well,
her.
not
Go
right
ahead.
this second.
All right, go think, man. Think, man.
You know, you're supposed to be managing the board, right?
Okay, I thought you wanted to think with her.
Welcome to Return of the Thinking Man. I'm Bob Banfield, or Cowboy Bob. Sitting next to me is the one and the only, the thinks himself the immortal Dr. D. And we are here to discuss the topics of the day, whatever they might be. First of all, let me start this with I don't get paid for this. I don't own it. I have no investment in it. I simply give my opinions and my ideas freely, and I expect nothing more than an argument in return. I do believe the lines are open. So
Oh, yes. Yes, the
if you go
lines
to
are open.
Facebook, I guess we're not on YouTube, as my programs never seem to be on YouTube anymore.
Oh,
Um,
we are on, but I had to put us on the putting it out there page because somebody got me blocked. That's okay. It's
was it
okay.
me?
Nah, it wasn't you. You're
Well,
not
then
that special today.
why am I being punished for something somebody else did?
Hey, you know something?
This is sounding like grade school. You know, the whole class is going to get punished until somebody confesses to doing something that pissed off the principal. I didn't do it. Why am I being punished, right?
I think
So,
you're just loved. You're loved.
I guess that's the case in point. So, there was a conversation that was being had. Now, I'm not going to mention any names. The parties involved know who they are. I actually conversed with them. Now, the statements that were made, I'm going to gloss over a little bit because they were kind of inflammatory, as it were. And I think they were unfair, if not inappropriate. We have a younger generation that is seriously screwed up. They're definitely confused, they're commonly misdirected, and they seem to lack a reality of what's really going on versus what some stuffed bird on TV told them. Okay. This is quite understandable. And to all of those young people out there, let's say from the ages of 50 and down, it's not your fault. It is your problem, but it's not your fault. You don't have to accept the blame. You're allowed to pass that off because you only did what you were told to do, what you were programmed to do, what you were directed to do. Mommy and daddy were wrong. The schools were wrong. Sesame Street was very wrong in so many ways. But here's the reality: what happened 20 years ago, or 200 years ago, or 2,000 years ago are interesting discussions to have because you can see relevance in what once happened to what is now happening. And maybe in that clue, you can get an idea of how to avoid the repercussions of those activities. So, in other words, your life doesn't have to be miserable. Now, granted, there's nothing new in this world, something I was told 50 years ago. And like everybody else of my generation, I said, you don't know what you're talking about. You're old people. And I went out to prove that there was something new in this world. Lo and behold, at pushing 70, I have found out that in reality, there really isn't anything new. There's a new perspective, but there's nothing new origin wise. All that is has always been, it's here, and it'll be here until tomorrow and the day after. That's reality. Your problem, or the problem as I see it in our youth today, and I would call on Dr. D to give us the wisdom of his education in this field. But what I see is a whole group of children, eager, enthusiastic, full of energy, full of curiosity, wanting to make a mark, because that's the normal human existence. We all want to be recognized that we did something, that we existed. Okay. Even if it's just saying hi as we pass each other every day at work. Okay. It's being acknowledged. We all want to be acknowledged. We all want to belong to something. The problem is at the core of it all, what we belong to is either effectual and impactful, or it's just BS. So gaining the #1 title on Dungeons and Dragons is really of no advantageous manner whatsoever to the world at large or anybody else that's breathing. It's important to you and your clique of friends, but beyond that, it's unimportant. Belonging to something that makes a difference, that is impactful, that's important. It's good for the human psychology. We like to feel like we're needed. We like to feel like we have a purpose. And I would give you that principally today, the biggest problem that the younger generation has, and I would drop that down now to under 30, is that they can't figure out what their purpose is. There doesn't seem to be a slot. And just about the time those people were getting old enough to start getting engaged and finding something that was they were passionate about, we started locking it down, shutting it down. Don't go out at night. There's a bad moon on the horizon. Okay. Don't go outside. Don't go downtown. You'll get shot and killed. Don't go to a concert. You might get shot and killed or stomped to death. Don't go anywhere. And when that wasn't enough, we went one step further on a social level and we came up with a full lockdown. Everybody go home, stay home. Don't go to school and don't work. Stay at home. By the way, if you don't get along with your family, too bad. Get over it. Go hibernate in a corner and just stay away from them. Now, this is a lovely environment for a child to be growing up in. And we wonder why these children have problems negotiating the social norms, why they're looking for something outrageous. We've had a lot of conversation lately about transgenderism. Let's get past that. Doesn't matter. Be whatever the hell you want to be. If you want to walk around with a full-grown beard, wearing a tutu, and have, little puffy balls in your shirt to make it look like you got boobies, then by all means, you go for it. Don't come over to my house. I really don't want to let you in. But you go do whatever you want to do. And if the rest of society wants to tolerate you for that, that's fine. But that isn't coming to find a way to fit in. That's finding a way to be absurdly different from everybody else. And I would contend that that's the real drive behind it. A bunch of people for a very long time, going back 40, almost 50 years in my memory, have been trying to get the rest of the world to condone the fact that they don't want to play by everybody else's rules, and therefore they should be accepted, they should be included, they should be forgiven, and oh, by the way, they should get extra benefits. So the benefits I don't get, the benefits D doesn't get. We don't get them. Nobody's giving us any concessions. I don't get to stand in line and hold a card that says, hey, hire me first. I tried that back in 1975. It was a veteran's card, it was my military ID card. And supposedly when I came home from my service in the military, I was supposed to be able to walk into virtually any place in this country and go, I need a job. And they were supposed to hire me. No. They shut the door, said we have no openings. And then hired somebody else that just got out of a junior college, but wouldn't hire me. I was a baby killer. I would suggest that the same thing stood when D got out of the military. What was that? 84, 85?
85.
85.
85.
So what was it like when you went to go find employment after the military?
Oh, shit.
Or did you?
Or
did
find
you just
employment?
go to college?
Are you talking about finding employment?
Yeah, I'm
I
talking
pre-signed
a job,
up.
9 to 5 and a paycheck.
I
right?
pre-signed up with the, they had the delay entry program. That was the best thing. And after we got out of the military,
Did you ever
um,
get your bonus?
what?
Did you ever get the bonus?
I look, and they said it was put into the paycheck. Hold on. Who actually looked at that? Yeah. Um, yeah. We're trying to be nice right now because, we're talking about the beauty of being a.
So you were out of the military. You were a veteran. You are supposed to be given preferential consideration with regards to employment if you have the necessary skills. Now
Hold
that
on, hold
doesn't
on.
cover
My
if you
necessary
can't do the
skills.
job,
Look,
right? Yeah.
here's your necessary skills for you. Okay, let me try this. You're in the military. You're driving tanks. You're in the military using heavy equipment. You're in the military doing shooting. You're in the military setting up satellite links and programming. You're in the military. You're doing. But when you come out, what do you want me to do? Work for AT&T? And if they can find a position available for me.
Well, that's if you weren't an accelerated individual who's already been offered a gig with the CIA, the NSA, the FBI,
Hold on.
the local sheriff's
Yeah,
department,
local sheriff,
U.S. Marshals,
marshals.
or the local city PD, because the first thing they want on their roster is another veteran in uniform.
Yeah, somebody that
Basically,
knows how
because
to
you
what?
already know the game, right? You're already trained in the game.
You already trained the game. You got to kill.
Right.
All right, done. All right. Let me go get me a
Except in
plate
law
because I got to eat during
enforcement,
your
now
show.
they changed the rules because in law enforcement, you're not allowed to kill anymore. So now it's a no-no.
You can't kill? You got to tase them.
2 months ago in a combat sector,
Right.
okay, there was no question. You shot them down and they were wearing the other guy's uniform, no questions, right? If you didn't take prisoners, no problem. Come home, say, put on this gun, put on this badge, secure the streets of America, and you go out and do what you would have done back in that combat scenario, and suddenly you're a bad boy and you need counseling. You're in trouble. You can't deal with that. See, it's not black and white. And this is the problem that we have with our youth today. Nothing is black and white. Now,
just that shade of gray, baby.
I would ask, and I would think, I would contend that yeah, well, I can do that. See, you do your thing, and I'll do mine, and then and
You
I'll
got the donuts out? How dare you?
Oh yeah.
All right.
I got the whole thing.
This is a
It's
comfortable
Saturday,
show,
man.
everybody. So either pack them and smoke them, or
Yeah.
get some food and eat
Yeah,
them.
if you're being all official here, you're in the wrong place.
Yeah, you.
So at any rate, I would contend that if you went to every kid 12 to 18 years of age and asked that kid if they wanted to get this preventative vaccine, not with a parent standing there and not with a parent demanding that they go down and get it done because the parent controls the world. I'm saying ask the kid, ask the 14-year-old. Okay?
They don't want a needle.
But then before you accept an answer, demand that they look at the evidence on both the pro and the con.
Hold on.
And make a decision from that point of view, because believe it or not, they can.
No,
Okay,
no,
the
no,
same
no.
kid that can
Bob.
figure out what kind of battery to put in his hovercraft, okay, can decide between the pros and the cons what they do and don't want to do.
Bob, they don't want needles. Where are you coming from?
Well, there it is. So you're vaccinating a bunch of kids, and you're doing it because the parents are dictating it, not because the kid wanted it. Okay. I saw commercials on TV where they tried to sell this idea that, and it was a little Hispanic kid, and he's coming up and it's going, Mommy, when can we go get my shot? Mommy, when can we go get my shot? I want to protect grandma from the virus. I mean, it's a national media commercial trying to convince us that our children wanted this vaccine. I never met a kid yet that voluntarily wanted to get stabbed in the arm with a needle.
Paid actors.
Okay.
Paid
Most
actors.
kids cringe. I've seen kids break out bawling in tears. I've seen young adults, 12, 13 years old, literally faint. from the shot. Oh, down they went. I watched grown men in the military at AFES, right? When we first went in basic training,
Oh,
right?
hell
You know,
yeah.
you're in civilian clothes. You walk in a room, you strip down to your underwear, and you start walking from room to room down this hall, and you go into this room, and there's all these guys lined up, and you're all standing there going, well, what the fuck's taking so long,
Socks and
right?
jocks.
Blah blah blah. And here come the medics, right? And they've got a stretcher, and they're picking some joker up in the room and carrying him out to some wherever infirmary, all right, because he passed out. They gave him a shot and he went blank.
Socks and jocks.
Yeah. And you know what? When he recovered, they shipped his ass right back to basic training. Okay, the fact that he couldn't stay conscious through getting injected was not grounds to keep him out of the military. Okay. Neither was wearing lace underwear, by the way, for those of you who have questions about old stories. Okay. Truth is, they laughed at you and passed you right on down to the next room. You did not get discharged because you said you were gay. Their basic approach at that time in the 1970s was pretty firm. Okay. Go ahead. Whatever happens in the barracks after lights out is your problem.
Oh,
Well, if the
yeah.
other 29 guys in your barracks beat the hell out of you in the middle of the night, you'll know why. Okay, so go ahead. Be openly gay if that's what you want to be, but it's not keeping you out of the military.
It's going to keep you right there. You're going to really carry your backpack.
So I think the long and short of it is, look, it's not your fault. You have been misled, you've been misinformed, you've been misdirected. And because of that, you have lost the ability to question the very elements of what you've been given because you've been told absolutely not to argue. Don't talk back. Don't question. It's the authority. Do as you're told. Okay? So I would suggest that for the younger generation, the first thing we need to do is go back to teaching them that they're human beings, that they have a cognitive brain. Not saying it's a good one, I'm just saying it's cognitive. It works. If you understand my conversation, your brain is working. And then you need to understand that you have what is called free choice, and that has been denied to you since day one. Now, agreeably, when you are an infant, the adults around you are responsible for your well-being and safety, and therefore they will don't do that, no, don't touch, don't, blah, blah, blah. But after a point, and I would contend for most kids, it happens before the age of 7. They start questioning. They start going, well, how come mom and dad say I can't do this and I can't do that? If that kid's doing it and he's only 9 months older than me, why can't I do it? You're not old enough. But if I can understand it, why can't I do it? You see, we get so busy in propping up the protective side that we forget to give the kid a free rein and let him find out for himself a little bit. Now, you're going to head into a conversation that you primed this show with because you want to talk about it, D, and I'll go there with you. But I'm going to make this comment first. I am, in fact, a real live, honest to God cowboy. Dyed in the wool, kicked in the butt, okay, horned in the leg, run over by the cattle, bit by the barbed wire, struck by the lightning. Been there, done that, cowboy. Now, when I was raising children many years ago, they were out on the land. They were out there with mom and dad. We were working. We were taking care of the livestock. Had to go out and feed, had to clean, had to do the things you have to do to keep the animals alive and healthy. And because there wasn't anybody to watch the kid had to come along too. So the kid was witness to everything. Now along came a time when, Daddy, the bull's chasing the cow again, Daddy. The bull's chasing the cow again, Daddy. Daddy, the rooster's picking on the chicken. Daddy, the rooster's picking on the chicken. So you explain to them that that's not what's happening.
It's called a facts of
And in
life.
given time, before the age of 4, they have probably borne witness to the birth of a living mammal. They know that chickens come from eggs, but they also know that they eat eggs scrambled at breakfast every morning. And when the kid asks you why the eggs are always scrambled, you say to make sure the chickens all broke up. Just in case it's an old egg. That's a joke. But they've seen the calf be born. They've seen the horse be born. They've seen the sheep being born. Okay? They're asking questions and you're explaining it to them. They've seen the bull take the cows out in the pasture. And you had to explain that the bull was not hurting the cow. Okay? Because in their little mind, what they see is something bigger picking on something smaller, and it looks like it's mean and painful. And then you explain to them that this is where babies come from. Now, the conversation that you're going to have or wish to have is a very malleable question because it really does depend on both your personal sensitivities, your ethics or religious philosophies, your position of am I equipped? Because I think that's the first question that gets asked. Am I equipped? Do I really know how to raise a child? I'm scarcely more than a child myself at this point in my life, and I'm now supposed to figure all this out. And of course, the only reference point I have are the parents that raised me. So, how did they deal with these things? Well, I may not agree with how they dealt with them. I may not like how the outcome worked out. So, I may be looking for a different answer and feeling very ill equipped now because nobody actually trained me to train someone else. I have to guess. I'm faking it. Now, my kid, most kids around in those days pretty much knew where babies came from, understood the difference between the male and the female, had a basic, if not detailed, understanding of the sexual behavior or activity that is required in order to reproduce an offspring. Then they went to school. Now, one of the things that we know quite commonly, and again, I will ask D to verify this if he feels a need, most children have an understanding about the life they occupy. Consequently, when they are in a group with their peers, they are communicating with their peers. They do not feel the need to bring the adults into the conversation. The logic behind this is really quite simple. Our parents are telling us A, B, C. We're questioning A, B, and C. And having them around simply means that they come back and reiterate the same crap all over again because they'll never come clean and tell us the truth. We're not old enough. We can't understand. So, sexuality being a natural recourse of the human nature, not to mention it's all over television, it's all over the magazines, it's in all the movies, it's everywhere you look. So the 6 or 7-year-olds are having conversations with other 6 and 7-year-olds on these topics. Little Susie Marley is very uncomfortable with this. Her parents are very strict, very religious, very moralist people. They don't talk about this. So when she hears these other kids talking about it, it upsets her. And she goes to the teacher on the playground and says, "Teacher, what does Billy mean when he says blah, 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 blah?" And the teacher now feels as though that individual is obligated, be they male or female, to address this child's questions. Because isn't the problem in our society based on the fact that in general cases, we simply go away, boy, you bother me, right? I don't like the question. I'm uncomfortable with the question. I'm not your parent. It's not my place to answer this question. Go away. Well, the problem is nobody ever answered the question. So the kid came up with answers on his own, and he did not get them from the best resources available. Okay. So we have all these social problems today because of that particular behavior. Now, the question at hand, quite honestly, is what gives a teacher the power to stand up in front of a classroom and decide whether or not to educate a room full of 8-year-olds on both the human anatomy, the emotional attachments, sexual preference, ideology, and fetish. Okay. Because I will tell you, as a matter of fact, okay, and you can argue with me. You can argue with me, or you can go look it up in the dictionary, but homosexuality is a fetish. Okay. So they're teaching fetish in the classroom to an 8-year-old. Now, I'm not suggesting that the 8-year-old doesn't have questions already, but I'm asking, and this is the question that's been asked, are they too young for this information? Should they be getting the information, but should it be filtered in a very binary kind of way? Or should a flamingly queer teacher be teaching my children how to be flamingly queer at an age when they haven't even hit puberty yet? So they don't really even know anything about their sexuality. The only reason that they keep their pants on when they're running around outside playing is because mom's convinced them that it's embarrassing for people to see their underwear. Okay? Because that's all mom's ever explained. Nobody wants to see your dirty shorts, so pull your pants up. Pull your dress down, Susie. Nobody wants to see your dirty underwear. So when is the appropriate age? He leaves, just. So when is the appropriate age? What should we teach them?
We should teach the birds and
Should
the
we let them
bees.
direct the course? Should we let the children ask the questions and simply address the answers in a clinical, biological way without putting accent on it or without putting our personal fetishes in play? I surrender. You want to play that clip? Play that clip.
I'm gonna
Or
play
make
the
a
clip.
comment.
I'm gonna play the clip because you know something. I think the only way to address this is to let people see it. I think that's the only way. It's the only way. All right, here we go.
My name's Anita Karpakian, and I'm here to bring awareness to the emails that had surfaced earlier this month. The one I find most disturbing of all is of a third grade teacher trying to talk about sex with 8-year-old students. These are 8-year-old children that she is trying to hold a sexual orientation class with. A parent shared their concern and their objection to it and pulled their kid out. And instead of this teacher being concerned of what she did wrong, she goes to a district employee and asks for ways of how she can continue to teach sexual orientation to her third grade class. You guys want us to believe that this isn't a propaganda, that no agenda is being held? This wasn't just any sexuality class. This was specifically designed 3 days a week. She taught LGBTQ curriculum in her class. It raises the question, how many of those students are excelling in that classroom? Is everybody in that class getting A's in math, English, grammar, social studies? That we can dedicate 3 days a week to teach 8-year-olds about sexual orientation? I don't care what kind of sex is being discussed. The word sexuality, nudity, does not belong in the ears in a classroom of 8-year-old kids. And when a parent showed their concern, what does this teacher do? Completely disregards and goes behind the parent's back trying to find ways of how to continue these lesson plans? The level of disrespect that has been shown to Christian conservative parents is becoming very obvious. The board is not listening to what we are saying. Because if you guys want to talk about including all, listening to all, every student matters, our kids matter too. And we don't want those subjects being taught to children who are just 8 years old. And the topics get worse and worse and the subjects get more detailed. And I'm sorry, are we doing Bible studies in classrooms? No, we're not, right? So why is this a certain agenda being pushed into the classrooms?
Say your piece. I'm
It's-
gonna blow
it's
the
all
hell out of
yours.
this. So
It's
say
all-
your
go,
piece.
Go ahead, go ahead, Bob. Go ahead and just.
No,
blow it up.
I want to
No,
hear
no, I
your
ain't got nothing
opinion
to say,
so
Bob.
I can take it down
I got
too.
your boy on the phone, Bob. Dr. Paul.
Which boy?
Dr.
Which
Paul. Dr. Paul,
Hey,
say
Paul.
hi, Doc.
Hello.
Hello, Paul. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I just had
All right.
one of my channels nuked.
Hey.
Yeah,
All
they
I
get-
will reiterate is remember what I said yesterday. Okay.
They nuked one of his channels, kicked it off, killed it.
Kicked it off
Yep.
because of the conversation yesterday.
Yep.
Me, I don't know if it's the conversation yesterday or something else I said. It doesn't. They didn't tell me the reason. They just deleted the channel.
Well, Paul, how does the song go? You don't tug on Superman's cape. You don't spit into the wind. You don't pull the mask off the old Long Ranger. You did all three of them. You know, you shouldn't be surprised.
Paul's all excited. He's like, "Yeah, I did, didn't I?"
I mean, you know,
And I took the Green Lantern's ring.
if I hadn't thrown all my medals in the garbage can when I came home from the service, I'd mail you a couple. It's just because you deserve them, right? Any guy that'll run at a pillbox, you know, without armor or cover, just so he can throw a smoke grenade in the window. My God, you deserve a medal. Okay.
Hey, Paul, if you want to hop in on the show, we're talking about teaching little kids age 8, 6.
No. I'm not going to go on the show. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to repost. This 6-hour video download from YouTube. So I had a screenshot and replay it. And then I took the screenshot file, and then now I'm post-processing that, and then I'm going to upload it to Brighteon, BitChute, and Rumble. So that's what I'm trying to get done right now. And because it's such a big file, it's going to take forever.
All
It's
right.
going to take up all my bandwidth.
Yeah. What is that like?
That's like
12 gigabytes. Yeah.
No, it should be like 35 gigabytes.
It's pretty big.
It's huge.
No, I can do an hour in under 4.
All right.
So I mean,
Paul.
on editor,
I'll
I
hit
can
you
do an
back.
hour of video
And
edited
you,
and have
yeah,
4
enjoy,
gigabytes.
brother.
Yeah.
All right, Bob.
All right, bye. All right, that was the infamous Dr. Paul Cottrell giving a report after his 6-hour show last night about the debate. If you didn't see it, check us out.
You should check it out. It was I sat through the whole thing. It was a very interesting conversation.
All right, go ahead and
I
just drop
said
the
this,
bomb.
and I said this openly, and then I'll close this conversation. I said this openly online. Both sides were heard. Both sides had a valuable argument. They each had points that you can't argue with. Okay. Yet they were on the opposite sides of the table. So I suggest, much like a coin, there was the heads and the tails. But you know, the interesting part is it's one coin. See, you only look at one side, then you only see one side. But if you look at both sides of the coin, as there are two sides to every coin, okay, then you understand that it takes both sides to make the coin. You can't have a front without a back. It's not logical. And from physics standpoint, it's not possible because anything you see on the flat surface as the front has a back. See, it's there. Okay, so if you can see it as a solid object on this side, then you have to consider what's over here on the opposite side. So the contentions and the arguments, and we can get into that later, that there's some interesting things there, and I've got some perspective on that. But back to this thing with the sex education and when. Sex education used to come in middle school in my day. First sex ed classes came in around 7th or 8th grade. And they initially started out at the freshman element. And as a freshman in high school, which would be 9th grade, um, boys were required to take home ec, one semester of home ec, basically just so you could see how the other half lived. Now, sex education came more into play when we started having a reemergence of venereal diseases. And this was before AIDS. There was just a lot of gonorrhea, there was a lot of herpes, there was just a lot of stuff going around, and it was being rapidly spread. And they would contend that it was the hippie movement, the free love thing, that we were all just having a whole lot of sex. And I grew up in an era and a social circle that said, you know, you don't put on a raincoat to go down to the beach and go swimming. Okay. You're going down there to splash in water. Why would you put on a raincoat?
Right.
Right? Okay. So consequently, this became a social problem. Go figure. A social disease is a social problem. So they thought that in their wisdom at the time, it was determined that we should start getting a little bit more into the, you know, causes of these venereal diseases and the proclivity of young people to experiment sexually with other young people, and the need to be protective and aware that, you know, what was the thing in the army? This is my rifle. This is my gun. This is for shooting. This is for fun. Okay. But the logic of that was that we discovered that that was a loaded weapon too. See, it could kill.
Oh yeah.
Not only could it create life, it could spread the disease that could end life. And it could work as a receptacle. So you could go where no man has supposedly gone before and come out with a disease. Yes. Okay. So it's now a receptacle. It's a two-way transmission, right? Okay. So we're learning about this in school. Now, this is 14 and 15-year-olds. Okay. Look, boys are already trying to look down to girls' sweaters. Okay.
Hold on, don't forget
Girls
our
are already
shoes.
looking at boys walking by in their gym shorts going, ooh, okay. It's already happening at that age. Okay, they are in full-blown puberty. They are in, you know, their hormones are raging. And I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, 200 years ago, before we got all frickin' civilized and industrialized, Christianized, mortified, and protectified, okay, children used to get married at age 14 and 15 and started having babies within 9 months of the wedding.
And some places,
if not
13
sooner.
and 12.
Yes, and they were considered adults. A 16-year-old boy was considered a landowner, or he could be. But that meant that he started working at age 12, saving up the money to buy that land. Okay, people were grandparents at the age of 35. Go figure. Okay, now we changed all that, and there's a lot of reasons why. Some of it was logical intelligence, economic stuff. Okay, you know, that, you know, we were living longer, so we wanted to retire later. We could be productive longer. We could be healthier, better. So, you know, we don't want to move out of our job and our security to make room for these youngsters coming up. So let's hold them back. So instead of them coming out 12, 13, 14 years old, let's hold them back. Let's make it 21. Then we had a couple of wars and realized that we needed more bodies, so we had to move that age down to 18, because that gave us 3 more years of soldier potential there that we could go tap into, that were hanging out in high schools or, you know, sitting in city jails. Okay, so we could turn them into soldiers. So we actually made it legal so that you could send a child to war at age 17. But then one would argue, is 17 a child or is 17 an adult? Is 8 years old and in third grade, are the boys trying to look up the girls' skirts when they're sitting in the chair? Because if they are, then they are already sexually active. They might not be functionally engaged yet, but they are sexually active in their head. They're looking, they're curious. They may not even know why they're looking, they're just looking. For some reason, they find that enticing. And as 9 and 10 and 11-year-old girls start developing their upper chest, boys become very aware of it very quickly. See, I was playing with Susie last summer, and we were out having a grand time playing in the sprinklers and this and that and the other thing, and there was nothing going on. This summer, I went out and I was playing with Susie, and we were running through the sprinklers, and all of a sudden I noticed that she had these two little protrusions coming out of her t-shirt. And I said, Susie, what's wrong with your shirt? What's that? And she got all upset, embarrassed, pissed off, called me names, punched me in the nose, and then ran home crying. Well, now I want to know why. Anything that got me punched in the nose, I want to know why. So where is the appropriate age to have this conversation? Is it when the child starts raising questions? Should we be openly verbal with our children at age 4 and 5 when they say, Mommy, where do babies come from? Is it too much information? Should it wait? Now, in the case of these teachers and this particular issue that the lady was talking about, I would suggest that this is a case of trying to gain normality. So this is obviously an LGBT affiliate, if not an LGBT participant, who's teaching this class. And as such, they want to be accepted. And since they can't get my generation to acknowledge and say they're okay, it's all okie dokie. You just be as weird as you want to be. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Okay. They're going after the children because they want to indoctrinate the children. So the children will be openly accepting of them. And instead of saying you're strange, you're weird, you're abnormal, okay, you're an anomaly to nature because nature created us, a male and a female, to procreate. So if you're ignoring the other gender, then you're not part of nature's norm. You're a contradiction to nature. And in some terminology, that would make you an abnormal. It's not a judgment call, it's an analytical. You see, and that's the problem. Every time you lay the analytical on the table, they start calling you a racist and a hatist and a phobist and a this and a that, because it's just common sense. And if I simply hold on to common sense, then there's something wrong with me. What did the guy the other night get all bent out of shape over? You know, the things he was calling me. Called me a racist, called me a hater, called me a supremacist, called me a homophobic, called me all these names. Maybe I'm all of them. That's my privilege. It's my right. And who the hell are you to judge me? Because if I'm not allowed to judge you, then you're not allowed to judge me. But we bring this back to the conversation at hand. And the conversation at hand is, should they be teaching the defensive arguments supporting the LGBT way of life to a bunch of ill-informed 8-year-olds? I would contend no. I would contend that that's a conversation that they should be having with their parents, or they should be having this conversation with the clergy at their church, where the parents have put them to get them guidance. But I would come back and I would say this. It's not the parents' fault either. You see, because the system set this up. The system back in the 50s made it a thing that you had to keep up with the Joneses. So if the people next door just got a brand new Amana refrigerator, we need to get a new refrigerator too. We got to keep up, right? You've got a successful career. We're making good income. We can, if they can afford it, we can afford it. And they put us in this marginalized competition with each other. Okay. And Madison Avenue told us what the competition was. See, we didn't figure it out for ourselves. I wasn't jealous because they bought a new refrigerator. I was feeling sorry for the poor sucker. God damn, man, your refrigerator died. Shit, man, you had to shell out a couple $100 for a brand new refrigerator. Damn, man, I'm glad I'm not you. And they turned that around and said, no, 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 no. Look, he's got the latest, new asbestos. You need to have the latest, new asbestos or you're falling behind. And everybody's going to notice that when you go to the cocktail party on New Year's Eve, you're going to say hi and people are going to turn around and walk the other way because they know you're still using an old refrigerator. This is what they did. So in order to keep up with the Joneses, we went from mom staying home and dad going to work, which was the standard of the day. Mom raised the kids, dad made the bread. Okay, that's how it worked out. Well, mom had to go to work too, or they couldn't make enough money because dad could only make so much bread in an hour and they needed more. So mom went to work too. Now, in order to alleviate mom's responsibility and not dump it on dad, we decided to come up with public schools. We would go drop our little rugrats off to school, and these people who were certified and educated and were overseen, watched, okay, would take care of our children. And they would see to it that they learned basic math and that they learned how to write their name and they knew their ABCs, etc. And then we had more things you needed to buy and more money was needed. So mom had to work all of the time. Dad had to work all of the time. And it became very convenient to rely on these schools to babysit our kids. Now, when you were in school, in grade school, the biggest gripe at the time from the teachers and academia in general was, you parents have got to get involved. You can't just ignore what's going on here. You have to come participate in the curriculum in our schools. You have to help us educate your children because we're telling your children what to do. They're going home and they're not doing it. And you're not reinforcing our lessons. You're not being involved enough. You need to join the PTA. You need to give more money to buy more pencils and notebooks and paper because these poor teachers are going out to Dollar General store and spending their own paycheck buying materials for their classroom. Well, first and foremost, that's a crock from the get-go. In a few rare scenarios, in a few odd cases, in some very low-grade depressed neighborhoods, that happened. The teachers actually found that their classroom was so inept equipment-wise that they spent their own money in order to augment it so they had the tools they needed to teach the children. But that was not the norm and it was not the standard of the day. Most schools were more than well funded and most schools were more than well supplied. Although in 1970, I was in a high school classroom taking a civics class, and the textbook that we were using for that civics class was written in 1953. As such, having missed a decade and a half of major changes in our society that were not depicted in that book at all, it was talking about something that happened a long time ago. I would even go so far as to say that when my wife at age 30 went back to school to get a college degree, they were teaching her primary information that was over a decade old. So that you graduated the class, you had the certification, but when you went out to get a job, nobody was using that anymore. Why would you spend 30 hours studying to get a certificate in Vox computing when everybody had moved to the desktop? Fox hadn't been used in over a decade. Okay? So they were intentionally teaching you outdated information so that you were ill prepared for the current reality. So it's not entirely the parents' fault that the kids are screwed up. They do take some responsibility. You do have to raise your children. I reemphasize, your children. This is my rifle. This is my gun. You brought them into this world. And for all you young studs out there who think you're so hot because you've got 4 and 5 kids with 4 and 5 different women, and you're not engaged in any of their lives, okay? You write a check because the state says you have to pay child support, but you don't ever have to see the children, be involved in the children, deal with the children, or have any responsibility for the children other than to write a check. Nice try, chump. Don't work. I'm holding you responsible for everything your kid does, whether you were there and engaged or not. Because you see, you were the father. If you'd put on the raincoat, might not have this conversation, but you didn't put on the raincoat, did you? And she said she took that pill. She neglected to tell you how many times this month she forgot and just went on the next day like nothing happened. Because she didn't have sex that day, so what's the problem, right? Just because she didn't take her pill, she didn't have sex, so what's the problem? Mothers, you gave birth to these children. Now, if you surrendered this child to the authorities to be adopted, become a foster child, whatever the scenario, okay, done. I don't condone your behavior. I don't judge you for it because I don't know your circumstances. But I can't imagine how you would let that child go if you carried it for 9 months and gave birth to it. I don't care how much you hated the father. Okay? I don't care how interfering this is. Do you know how many young women I have heard make the comment that the reason they wanted an abortion or the reason they didn't want, they took birth control religiously was because they didn't want to have their life destroyed by interfering with their career goals. So eager to achieve a level of, look at me, what I have done, that they would deny the principal purpose of their being, which is to procreate, keep the race going. But no. They want accolades, so they want to brag, so they want to be a superstar on the cover of a magazine. And having children would interfere with that, so I don't want to have the children. So yes, I was too lazy to use birth control and I got pregnant, so I wanted an abortion because having a baby would interfere with my career goals. Because mind you, my career goal is to prove that I'm a better man than you are, sir. Interesting how that works out, isn't it? Because not only do you and I, D, have that same competition going on between us, but now every woman in the world is in the game too. And she wants to prove that she's a better man than either of us. And by the way, she wants acknowledged for it. While at the same time, we've got a bunch of men who can't cut the mustard, who now want to become girls so they can rise to the top of the surface as the best girls. Not the best man. They can be a better woman than any other woman out there. They'll prove it to you. Watch me win the race. Watch me lift this refrigerator up. I'm a better woman than you are. Of course, I used to be a man, but now I'm a woman. By the way, you better recognize me as a woman too. And even when I walk into the bathroom and you're standing in there picking the fuzz out of your curls, okay, and you clearly are aware that I am masculine, not feminine, you're not allowed to get upset or get weird about it. You're just supposed to go right on doing what you're doing. Never mind that I'm in here watching you now. because I'm a woman. I said so. I think I'm a woman, therefore I am a woman. Which brings us back to it's your truth. We all have our own truth, whatever that truth is. It's not mine to question your truth. It's not mine to judge you for your truth. It's just your truth. And if I can't wrap my head around your truth, then the best thing for me to do is turn around and walk away. Go somewhere else. But then I'm not allowed to segregate either, right? So how dare I have a club just for long-haired old cowboys that don't want strange people with strange ideas hanging around playing cards and smoking cigarettes? I'm not allowed to have a private club anymore. I have to let everybody else come into that club too. You know? Now they're telling me, and I've seen the quotes, if you watch Newsmax, they were all over it for days. They couldn't talk about anything else. These children are not your children. They belong to the teachers. They're the teachers' children. You had sex. You created a child. You gave birth to that child. You nurtured, you fed, and you wiped that child's butt right up to the day it went to school. And the day that you enrolled it in kindergarten, it's no longer your child now. It belongs to the school. It now belongs to the teachers' union. They have decided what is best for the children of tomorrow to learn today. And we are so ignorant as products of the public school system. Get back to that. As products of the public school system, we are ill-equipped to understand how to raise our own children, so we should trust them to do it for us. And they know that your little Tommy is actually a Tammy. You're too ignorant to see it, but they do. They can see all the earmarks. See, Timmy's got big ears and a funky nose. So none of the girls are going to like him. So he's going to migrate to boys, and he's going to become homosexual because he can't get any heterosexual action because he's not the prettiest boy on the playground. So we're just going to go ahead and prep him now to become homosexual. Why? So my homosexual teenage son has somebody to live with 20 years from now. So we got to get Tommy turned into Tammy so Tammy can go see. Yeah. No, I think that's what's going on. I suspect that that's what's going on. But the relevant question still comes down to what age? What age is appropriate? When should a child start getting that kind of information? Not just the where the babies come from, not just how come I'm a boy and she's a girl, and what makes us different visibly, okay? But what goes on in the mind? You know, what is happening? Why, why does Timmy like to play with paper dolls, sit and cut out paper dolls and color dresses? I don't know. He's got an artistic flair. It's something he can control. See, the one thing we forget, and this is core psychology. I mean, it's the 101. Okay? We all have an id. Okay? And that id is driven to gratify itself by engaging things it can control. So if I can't control the bicycle, I don't want to ride the bicycle. If I can control the crayon and the coloring book, then I want to color because I'm having success here by my own measures. That has nothing to do with my sexuality. Nothing. That's my ego, feeding my ego. And if Timmy can't figure out how to find that gratification in the baseball bat and the football and the hockey gear, then that's Timmy. It's nobody's fault. That's who Timmy is. That doesn't make Timmy homosexual. That makes Timmy someone who has a different control level for self-satisfaction and gratification. And when should we be having that conversation with our children? Because I guarantee you, if you have that conversation with a 7-year-old, you are not going to be able to live with them through 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. You will get them at 16 because they need your signature for a driver's license, at least today. So they will have to bow down to you at some point. That, and they don't have the money to buy a car, so they need your car to drive to school. So you get a little leverage there. But in between, you start giving this kid too much free thinking opportunity, and they're gonna use it against you, and they're gonna be very effective at it. My father was 6'4", weighed 235 pounds at his best day. I was 3'5". I didn't weigh, I think 50 pounds, 55 pounds. You know, and that man used to remind me on a regular basis that he brought me into this world, he could take me out. And because of the size disparity, I believed him. But then I got enlightened. And from that point forward, I could have an argument with that man, and I could send that man to bed, sick as a dog, upset stomach, heart palpitations, sweating. I mean, I could mess him up by simply talking back to him in an intelligent manner, arguing the points that he couldn't argue back. Why is this got to be this way? Because I said so. No, it's not good enough. Not because you said so. Explain it to me. And when I would argue the point, or when I would bring up the elements of fact, I would destroy this man. Now, he could have, with a one hand, and did on many occasions, take me out of the picture. But in verbal comprehension, using the brain, I could destroy that man. And I could do that when I was 7 and 8 years old. So careful how much information you give these kids, because they won't use it the way you think they will. Remember a story of a kid? Got caught with his dad's 22 caliber Winchester repeater, right? Was in the gun case in the house. Kid took the gun. He and his buddies went off. Kid got caught. Question was, why'd you take the gun? What'd you do with it? Well, I couldn't find a fishing pole, so we tied a string to the end of the barrel and we used it to fish. Now, this is a repeating Winchester firearm. It's a gun. You could shoot the damn fish, okay? That's not what the kid did with the information. The kid used it as a pole to suspend his line from so he could fish. Never considering the aspects or elements of this being a loaded firearm, a gun, a weapon. You told him it was a weapon. He knew it was a weapon, but right now it's a handy broomstick because I don't have a broomstick and this is the same length and it's shaped the same way, so I'll use it. Now, that's the logic of an 8-year-old. Some people would say that was creative, very creative thinking. Highly elevated people would be going, what an interesting interpretation of purpose and matter for time and space. We should study this child. He's brilliant. Other parents would go, are you friggin' out of your mind? First of all, you're never supposed to go into the gun case. Second of all, you're never supposed to touch the guns. Third of all, do you realize you could have shot somebody's eyes out? Well, it's not a BB gun. It would have been a little more devastating than just shooting their eye out. They'd probably be dead. But that's the logic of an 8-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old. So tell me, folks, when is the appropriate time to share how much information with the future of tomorrow? And I'll end this conversation and let somebody else say anything with a simple comment. Tomorrow can never be yesterday if you don't stand up today. The future will never be the past if you don't take a stand today. But, as the cartoon says, I've seen all those Wile E. Coyote cartoons. Don't stand on the X. That's where things hit you on the head. So where to take that stand? What do you take a stand on, and when is it important? Is it important when it's your children? It is important when you're a young adult who doesn't want to take responsibility. This is getting back to what we were talking about last night. If you don't want to take responsibility for the future, if you realize that you're ill-equipped, you can't see where you fit, you have no talent, you have no self-esteem, you don't see where you have any worth or value beyond being the best Dungeons and Dragons player in your group, which is virtually good for nothing outside that group, and I tell you, hey, you're an adult now. Run the world. It's your job. You're going, hey, man, I don't want it. I don't want it. I'm not equipped for it. I don't want to run it. I'd rather stand here and tell you what's wrong, but I don't want to take responsibility for fixing it. I want it fixed for me. Just like mom makes breakfast for me and cuts the crust off my toast because I choke when I get bread toast in my throat. Okay, because it's too hard to chew it because I'm too lazy to chew. So I chunk it off and swallow it whole, because I'm just so lazy. I have been so lazy from early childhood. Mama said, don't get overexcited. Don't burn up the energy. Here, play with my smartphone. Then it was, here, play with the video games on the computer. Okay. Then it was, oh, here's your Nintendo. Don't go out and play. Don't be physical. Sit right here and do nothing. And oh, mommy will make you a sandwich and bring you something to drink. And you just sit here and be quiet because all mommy really cares about is you being quiet. Just be quiet. 5 minutes of my own sanity. Please be quiet. And so we turned our children into couch potatoes.
Pacification.
And now they have no gumption. They have no assertive drive. And come on, common sense. Do you want to be the president of this land?
No.
No, I don't want that job either. It sucks because you know what? No matter what you do, you're wrong.
So let's go get an old dementia patient to do it.
Well, sure. What's for dinner, Auntie? Come on. What's for dinner?
Well, it was shrimp and it was
No,
rice
what
and
is she
potatoes.
having for dinner?
Oh, I don't know.
I want her to design the menu.
Oh, hell no.
What are we having for dinner?
It was
Well, y'all gonna have to go out and pick them dandelion greens out of the yard. We can't make salad without dandelion greens.
Hold on. We gotta go bake some poisonberry. Yeah.
We got to do is some cracking some corn.
We gotta do some 7-year-old Indian corn that we use for Thanksgiving.
I thought that was amazing. Even as a kid, I grasped that. The first time I ever heard the song, the little ditty.
Yeah.
Okay, I grasped what they were talking about. When he says, Jimmy cracks corn, and I don't care, the master's gone away.
Right.
I didn't understand that they made alcohol out of corn.
Yes.
Okay, that would come later. I mean, as a young kid, I didn't quite grasp that, right?
That's why it's called corn liquor.
I sort of knew what beer was. I sort of knew what whiskey was. I really didn't know how it was made. I didn't understand the intricate aspects of it, okay? I just understood what it was, okay? But Jimmy's cracking corn, okay, to me meant he was cutting up and acting corny.
Nah.
Jimmy was cutting corn. But I don't care because the master's gone away. And the master's the only one that's going to get upset if Jimmy's clowning around and cracking corn. Then I found out about the distilling process, and then I immediately understood
There
what
you
cracking
go.
corn was. Jimmy's cracking corn. He's over there brewing booze. The
Right.
master's gone, and we're all going to party tonight.
Hell yeah.
And I mean, this is going to be some unaged alcohol now, mind you.
That's going to be pure strength.
I'm told now, and my grandfather had a still in the basement. Well, actually, it was a garage that was under the house. So it wasn't, there was a basement and there was a garage. They weren't technically the same rooms. And in the back of that garage, there was a door, and you opened up that door and you went in that room. And there was another panel that you opened up that wasn't a door. It was just looked like a wood panel, and it looked like it was a fruit cellar, right? Where they, jars of canned foods were on the shelves. But on one part of the wall, there were no shelves. And you went to that and you pulled back on that and opened that up and took you into another room. And in that other room was a still. It was a pretty good sized room. Had ventilation and everything in it, all set up. And they brewed liquor down there and had been brewing liquor down there for a very long time since the house had been built, I'm sure. Excuse me. And, but that was, in St. Clairsville, Ohio. So you're like right on the Ohio River across from Wheeling, West Virginia. So, I mean, that was the nature of things. They just made their own. It wasn't that they were selling it necessarily. They were just brewing their own stuff for their own purposes.
Oh, yeah, that's the good shit.
You couldn't buy it. And then I remember my great uncle, not my grandfather, because he passed when I was 10, but one of his brothers, who was one of my uncles, right? Great uncle, telling me stories, sitting out on a porch telling me stories about it. And he said, well, yeah. And he said, and then after Prohibition, we just kind of kept on brewing it because ours was better than theirs. And then the revenue boys got involved, and the people up in the government in Washington got all involved. And then it was like you didn't know what was in that whiskey no more. So it might still be Johnny Walker, but they done come in and told Johnny Walker they had to put all this crap in there that we don't want to drink. So we don't bother buying Johnny Walker anymore. We just make our own. We just keep making our own. We got stills. We can do it. We go down the farm and get the necessary grains, bring them up here, make our own mash. We make our own booze. And this was in the 1960s now, late 60s.
And it tastes better.
Telling me this. Yeah. And so I had sampling of that stuff they were brewing down in the garage.
I bet you did.
Oh, man. And I mean, I'm talking, like age 11.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Did it burn?
I mean, you took a shot, man, and you thought you were going to be badass. So you took a big slug, right?
You knew better.
Right? Oh, and then all of a sudden, man, it felt like something just blew the back of your head off, right? And there was another passage coming out your shorts, and you're like going, oh, my God, right? And you're looking for water, right? Anywhere, and, but I'm told that the original mash, so when they make the mash out of the various whatever products they're using, so rye and grain, different grains, corn, etc., depends on what you're making. So they make the mash. They cook that down. They've got the mash, and then they start the fermenting process. Well, if the master left today, and Jimmy started cracking corn today.
Yep.
And we were going to be partying by sundown tonight.
That was some powerful mash.
That stuff did not ferment.
It didn't get a chance to
for very long at all, right? But this is what they used to sell back in England. You hear the stories of the old knights and all that, right? And they were drinking mead. And that's essentially what mead was.
Right.
Mead was unfermented mash. It was cooked down, but it was never allowed to ferment, and it was never filtered. See, the liquor we drink today is filtered, so all the meat that was in the mash is gone.
The good stuff.
Right? And that stuff will knock you on your butt all by itself.
If it ferments, you're in trouble.
Yeah. And as I understand it, there were some of them folks around that part of the country who used to cook their mash, and they would intentionally go out and pick some of that railroad weed.
Oh, yes, they did.
and they would throw those buds into the mash.
Oh, yes, they did.
So you were literally getting a THC high from the mash.
You getting a double hitter quitter.
Yeah. Not only had it become toxic from, sugar toxic as alcohol, but it was also, the same as if you made brownies and you used marijuana for the flour, right? You made brownies. You're going to get stoned. It's going to take 20 minutes or half an hour after you eat that brownie, but you're going to get real messed up.
Hold on. Which did you get? Drunk first or stoned?
As I understand it, it was kind of a combo thing.
It was a double hitter quitter.
It was sort of because of the sugar concentration that was in the mash, the reaction was alcoholic drunk.
Boom.
Almost instantly.
Right. And then
right, because of the sugar, not because of the alcohol.
No. It's
because of the sugar, because your body trying to process that much intensive sugar. Because at this point, if it's mashed, it's going to be fermented down to make liquor. Okay. Then that means that it is at its highest concentration of the sugars being extracted from all of the grains. And if you don't think there's isn't sugar in barley and sugar in wheat and sugar in rye and all of it, right? And corn, hey, ever heard anybody talk about how sweet the corn is this year? That's natural sugars. That's the glucose in the corn. And that's what they are removing through the mash process in order to concentrate it. And then through the slow drip filtration, okay, they reduce that down to alcohol, which is still 2/3 part water.
And still a lot of smash.
Yeah. So if you take, if you take a syringe and a bottle of Jack Daniels and you draw it out of there and you break that down in a spectrometer, it's going to come up 2/3 water and 1/3 sugars, fermented sugars. And that's alcohol, folks. So, the mash, as I'm told, is a buzz beyond comparison. There is no other, the alcohol is a different, you drink the liquor, you get drunk, but that's a different kind of high. It's it's a biologically different in your body. Drinking that unfermented mash, okay, just simply, they just put a bunch of it in a barrel or in a tankard thing, right? Like a sieve, and they pour water through it real slow, okay? And what comes out the other end, the squeezings that comes out the other end into the glass is what you drink, and that stuff is potent. Yeah. Yeah.
You have me drooling over here.
It's like a government mule. Yeah. Yeah.
Good God.
But those are the good old days, that was back before, after Prohibition, and there were all kinds of laws. It was after Prohibition was when Coca-Cola was told that they had to remove the cocaine syrup.
So hold on, what about Elon?
Coca-Cola.
He gonna bring it back. Oh, Elon said he gonna save us. He gonna bring it back. God damn it.
Well, now, let me ask you a question, okay? Because this goes back to the same thing, okay? There's a conscious ideology at play here. The same conscious ideology that's having this argument about when we should be talking sexuality to our children, both the theoretical, psychological aspects as well as the physical realities, okay? We should be having these conversations. And some would say that, yes, the kid's old enough to know the difference between his mouth and his butthole, but that doesn't mean he needs to be thinking about which one he should be talking with right now. He shouldn't be talking at all. Point blank. Okay, so big contention there. But in that same token, then, we look at natural elements in nature. So peyote, a plant that grows in the deserts, produces a spongy bud. That spongy bud, properly dealt with, can be ingested, and you will get a very, very heavy psychedelic high, and it will last for days. It's not something that goes on for hours. You eat these things, you go down, you stay that way for 3 or 4 days. This is why Native Americans in many of their religious cultures had what they called the vision quest or the trial of manhood. And that was where the young men were taken off and they were isolated on a hillside somewhere and they were fed peyote and they stayed there for days in this metabolic trance that they had created from this drug. Now, interestingly enough, they did the same thing with the girls. They just don't talk about it. The girls went off and had the same kind of vision quest. Okay. They were looking towards other things. See, the boys were looking about how they were going to be warrior heroes, and the girls were looking about how they were going to be good mothers and nurturers, etc. But they both went through the process. So along the line, we've outlawed things like marijuana, things like peyote, which actually it's the same plant that they make mezcal out of, okay, which is a kind of tequila, somewhere between a tequila and a beer, but it's the mezcal plant that is the peyote button comes from. Okay, but you can't eat the button. You can't just go out and pick the button. It'll kill you. Can't. It'll kill you dead. Okay, you gotta know what parts you have to get rid of before you ingest it, or it will make you deathly sick. If it doesn't outright kill you, and in most cases it will outright kill you.
Correct.
Okay, because it's also a natural producer of cyanide. Okay, so it's there. It's where it's one of the places where they get cyanide. Okay, in its natural chemical form in nature. Cocaine comes from the coca. Okay, so it's an extract. It's taken from the plant shaft and the outer shell of the bean. Okay, the coca, what you make cocoa out of, okay, is the inner bean. It's not toxic. The outer shell of the bean is toxic. It's also ingestible. Okay, now it's not toxic in the fact that it'll kill you. It's toxic in the fact that it will cause strange effects.
It will give you the runs.
Right? So you grind this stuff up, clean it up real good, bleach it out a little bit, put out lines on a mirror, get yourself a straw and snort a little bit of it, you'll feel real good. But we shouldn't have that in public domain because we've got
pharmaceuticals.
Now I'm not going to be able to say it. Laudanum. We have laudanum. And laudanum is one of the earliest pharmaceuticals. And laudanum was given to you by your medical practitioner.
Pharmaceuticals.
Would give you a bottle of laudanum and tell you to take so much of this every day to treat certain maladies. Anxiety, stress, residual pain.
Yep.
A lot of women got hooked on it because after a difficult childbirth, they gave them laudanum and said, take the laudanum, so many tablespoons every so many hours, and it'll help you, help manage the pain.
Did they get rid of that yet?
And once they started doing it, even long after the pain should have been gone, they were still drinking the laudanum because it helped deal with anxiety and stress and other things. Okay?
Didn't they get rid of that too?
No, laudanum's still out there, except now it's very odd to have it. It's only in very rare cases that they actually prescribe laudanum. Now they have Valium, which is just laudanum in a pill. Right?
Right.
And then you go from Valium, okay, to the next, and I can't think of what the name of it is, the next pill. And that pill, now you cross into the world of opioids. Now you're into the world of the poppy seed,
is not illegal.
Opium, heroin,
right?
All of that are opioids, okay? And so, not methadone. What the hell is it called? No, methadone is a treatment.
Yeah.
What's the morphine?
Morphine, yeah.
Okay, so morphine, which was very prevalent in the military, okay, they used to issue it. Okay.
You always had it in your pack.
I don't know if they still did in your day. In my day, it was issued in your medical kit.
Yeah, your med
pack.
Yeah.
You had three vials of morphine in your medical pack
you got
carried on your belt at all times in combat. Right. Okay.
Or you got bit by
not if you got shot. It
if
was so you
somebody
could
else
treat
got
the other
shot.
guy. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But also
yeah.
in case you got bit by a snake.
But trust me, there were guys that sat out in the bush in the middle of the night
and dripped.
Yeah, took a little bit of that for themselves. There wasn't anybody wounded yet. Okay, that was just how you got through the night because it was freaking scary in the dark. With 100,000 people out there wanting to kill you, and you don't know where they are, how many of there are, when they're coming. You know they're there. You just don't know when.
You.
Right? And it's dark, and
I
you can't
need
see them, and they can't see
protection.
you. And oh yeah, guys got real scared, man. They got real stressed out, so they did things to keep themselves calm, so they wouldn't freak. Because if you freak out, jump up and go running, you're dead.
You're dead.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Anything moving out there is going to get shot. Okay, so you don't get up and move around.
And you don't know by who, either your people or theirs.
Yeah, because in the dark, who gives a fuck, right? Anything moving gets shot. The deer, the antelope, it doesn't matter.
The panda
right?
bear.
It gets shot.
The
Because it's
bear.
dark and I'm scared, and I have good reason to be scared. Okay, I know there are people on the other side of that bush that want to kill me, have every intention of killing me if they can see me.
Yep. No joke.
I'm scared. I'd be nuts not to be.
See, that's the fear in the mind of man.
Well, and again, if we can send children to war,
they might as well be able to take the drugs.
And we talk about this in our country. Hey, in our country, you have to be 17. Well, actually, you have to be 16. They can sign. A governor can sign a waiver and get you in before you're 17. 17 is the bottom line for open indoctrination. 18 is enlistment age. Okay, but we can send these children off to die in war, while the old folks that have all the money and make all the decisions are sitting at home nice and safe and secure behind their sandbag mansions.
And their children are sitting back there smoking all the herb and everything else.
Yeah, and they're sending children out to get killed.
Yeah.
Okay, by the thousands, by the tens of thousands, by the hundreds of thousands. Okay, see, you bitching at me about how many people are dying from this disease. Okay, and they're putting it up every night in evening news, this many more deaths, coming out of these regions of the United States. And I'm like going, yeah, okay, yeah, okay. Like I didn't sit through this same picture in the 1960s when it was Walter Cronkite and all those guys, and every night on the 6 o'clock news, this many more body count coming out of Vietnam, this many more body count coming out of Vietnam. Pretty soon they quit talking about how many enemies they killed, and they started talking about how many of our guys died.
But they didn't give you numbers, or real numbers.
And then they've got videotape, man. They're showing you unloading the coffins off the goddamn airplanes at the fucking airports because these boys are coming home in a box.
Hold on, I got a good one for you.
And you want me to get all bent out of shape because some people died of a bad cold?
Oh, hold on, I got a good one for you.
I'm not.
How do they
sorry.
know how many people died on the opposite side of Vietnam? How do they know? Just like they said, this many Russians died in Ukraine. This many Russians died in Ukraine. How do you know?
I think it's speculation.
Listen, they're bullshitting.
Well, look, man, we did something over there.
How's that donut?
Pretty good.
All right. It's got good chocolate to it.
We did something over there that was very immoral. We did something over there that was terribly inhumane.
We left Americans.
First of all, we went through these people's lands. Where they're live. These are farmers. These are agricultural people. They're tribal people.
Right.
They live out in the marshes. They live out in the bayous. They live out in the jungle. They've carved out a livelihood for generations, and they practice that livelihood they're very consistent with it.
And we brought our culture over.
So we went in there, and the first thing we did was destroy the habitat. We started with fire with napalm, and then we decided that napalm, A, was too expensive, And B, we had this bioproduct we had created that we couldn't get rid of.
Agent
It's
Orange.
too toxic to keep around, and it's called paraquat.
Paraquat.
Then it had several different names attached to it, and basically what they did was they turned it into a powdered form, and they would spray that out of aircraft over top of vegetation, and they would kill all the vegetation, poison it. Not only would they poison the vegetation, they would poison the ground the vegetation grew in.
Sounds like golf.
No new vegetation could grow there for probably anywhere from 20 to 40 years while it leached out of the surface and new soil replaced it. Then you might be able to go back in and replant that area. So we did that, but that wasn't bad enough.
No.
So you have to go back and you have to watch the news footage from the days, and sometimes if you watch the Vietnam War, a PBS kind of special, right? So I think it was like 6 nights. They did a documentary of the Vietnam War, and there was a period in there, and I believe it was in '66 or '67, and Johnson, President Lyndon Baines Johnson, approved what they would call saturation bombing.
Oh, shit.
And we sent fleets of B-52 bombers over there, and all they did was bomb Vietnam like they had bombed Germany and Berlin back in the 40s.
And still
they flew over in just whole wings. If you can imagine, 200 aircraft, okay, flying wingtip to wingtip, okay, coming in across the landscape, and as they do, they're all start dropping bombs
at the same time.
They go away. Tomorrow they come back and they do it again, only this time they pick up right where they stopped yesterday and move forward, dropping bombs, so that they killed every living thing on the ground below them.
And we still couldn't survive.
So there would be no offensive against our interests in South Vietnam, which, by the way, was not the soldiers that were in Vietnam. They were not the primary interest of concern.
No.
The primary interest of concern and safety was for the people from Shell Oil and Chevron who were over there drilling in the bay and had been pumping oil up out of the bay without paying any royalties to Vietnam for almost 2 decades before the war broke out. See, we discovered that oil during World War II in our confrontations with Japan. So after all that was done, just like we did in North Africa, we went around scouting. The fighting was over, but our troops were still there. So we started looking around to see what kind of resources were available. Well, we found all this oil in what is today Saudi Arabia. Okay? They didn't know that was there. They didn't care. They were Bedouins. They were, they raised camels and sheep. They didn't give a rat's ass about oil till the white man came in with his war machines and needed oil. And they were importing the oil. So they were bringing it in on great big ships and in 50-gallon drums, and they were offloading it in depots so they had a place to fuel up. And somebody got to nosing around, a geologist, and said, hey, you know what? This is the proper landscape. Let's drill a hole here. Bingo, oil all over the place. All kinds of oil underneath that sand. And they went, hey, oil. So at the same time as they were doing this in North Africa, we got another bunch of guys over in Southeast Asia, Polynesia, all through the islands and all that country over there. And guess what? They discovered oil. And it would be where they would really, how do you put it, finalize the technology for, and I'm not phrasing this right, finalizing the technology for offshore drilling.
And refinement.
Right? So that the refinement, it's where they would refine how to best do it. And then after that, they would later move up to like Santa Barbara, San Bernardino, off the west coast of the U.S. They didn't start drilling in off Florida or in the Gulf of Mexico, Louisiana, I don't think they started doing offshore
Late
drilling there
70s.
until the late 70s.
Yeah, late 70s.
And they were already drilling offshore in both Korea and in the Vietnam era, um, you know, well before they ever got around to doing it in Gulf Coast.
They were sucking us dry, and they sucked Vietnam dry. They tried to, at least.
Well, they got to where they were sucking mud. And when they were sucking, now that they were sucking mud, and because there was so much upheaval back here in the States over the war, see, not over the oil, because they never disclosed that. I know guys who smuggled film out of Saigon at the very end. They were confiscating as you went on a transport, military transport, to depart from Vietnam. If you had a camera or you had film, it was confiscated. It did not leave country. But I have seen actual photographs of the line. Okay, look, it looks like people trying to get out of a football game or Super Bowl, right out of the parking lot Super Bowl, and all it is lines and lines and lines in the background. Okay, from the Saigon embassy, and it's nothing but Shell oil vehicles, just miles and miles and miles of all going to all going down to the shore to get loaded onto boats to get taken out. Before the troops were gone, before the embassy was closed down, they were already trying to get them off the continent. Okay, didn't want them there. When we surrendered, we weren't surrendering Shell oil; we were surrendering us. Okay, Shell oil scattled and left those derricks out there in the sea to fall to decay because there's nobody there that knows how to take care of them, and there was no money to take care of them anyhow. So, most of them, I'm sure, have collapsed into the Gulf by now, and there's probably little symbol that they even existed unless somebody's still using some of them. But see, they did that in Tonkin, they did that in Myanmar, they did that. They did that virtually everywhere after World War II in Southeast Asia. So off Japan, off Okinawa. Okay. There are still islands down there that no one has been on because there may be a possibility that there is oil reserves that can be tapped from this dry land connection. But nobody wants to go down there and find out. We just know there's oil all around the area. It's whether or not we can actually get to it from this little island, this little sandbar. And so we protect them like they're some kind of royal territory, because they might give us access to this oil down the road. But it's interesting how we have this whole emphasis here about what we're doing and how we're doing it, and how it's all coming to a head now. Almost like we knew there were going to be a bunch of questions that needed to be asked, and we figured we'd prime the charge to get everybody out bitching about it right off the get-go. So rather than panty-footing around about it, let's just throw it out on a table and start the fight. It's Thanksgiving dinner and you're trying to figure out why your very white Georgian cousin married that Chinese girl. Okay? Just why? Okay? And she clearly doesn't like us. She's quite outspoken about the fact she hates your family. Everything about us, everything, we smell funny, we look funny, we eat funny, everything we do is wrong. Okay? What in the hell did you marry her and bring her home for? Okay? So let's not wick around the table. Let's get it right out here and throw it out, and let's start the fight. That seems to be where we're at on a social level right now. And I find it kind of curious. Very interesting that these questions are all coming to the head at the same time. Wow, another group of people are professing that we're in a time of awakening. See, it's been predicted. Somebody talked about this 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 500 years ago. Said, oh yes, there will be a day when it will come to pass and the planets will line up and there will be a great awakening and mankind will become the new, Well, some people want to believe that so much that they would do everything in their power to see to it that it actually happens. If it didn't happen on a natural course, they will do everything they can to instigate it. And they don't care who they step on to get there, and they don't care who they damage in the process. They don't care. Because to them, they believe that it's coming, and that we need to prepare for this awakening, and that it's all going to, and so suddenly that we're going to have fairies and trolls and elves,
We already
and
got that.
and the unicorn, and they're all
We
going to
got
come
that
back.
too.
It's all going to come back.
We got
I know.
butterflies.
See, like I said, if it doesn't appear on its own, let's dress up and pretend to be that.
We got the kids doing it in school.
I'm not a male. I'm not a female. I'm a fairy.
I'm fairy. I'm fae. Hold on.
I'm
They
a
use the
fae,
word. I'm
yes.
fae. Like these woke
And there
assholes.
again, you see, and there is cultural appropriation. So we couldn't even come up with original definition. We had to go back, several thousand years in history and borrow it from old legends of a forgotten people.
Because we ain't got nothing that's real in our own lives. But hold on. I wonder, for all you people out there that believe in that fae and fairies and all that, I wonder how many of those fae fairies died during Vietnam War, because we were bombing the shit out of Vietnam. Come on.
Well, we were stepping on them regularly out there in the bush.
Oh, you were?
You could hear them
smoke
crunch
a couple of
under your
wings?
feet. You could hear them crunch under your feet.
Did you smoke a couple of wings?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. We bombed the shit out of that country.
I will not sit here, be consistent here. I will not sit here or take the stand on the idea that there's no such thing as the Fae, or that King Arthur is anything other than just a story, that Merlin was, that there is another realm, that magic exists. I've seen enough in my lifetime to make me go, I can't say that it doesn't exist.
That's right.
I can't support it. I have no evidence to back it up.
But you do have Bigfoot.
But I'm fairly convinced from my own bearings that, there's something there. Okay. And I do believe that in every great story, there is a root of truth. No matter how much the story's been embellished, no matter how much it's made up, there's a root of truth in the story, or it wouldn't exist at all.
Correct.
There had to have been something that launched the imagination of the storyteller.
Hold on. Well, we can't just say every story, because most of the stories,
well, the greatest story ever told is the greatest collection of bullshit that was ever spent.
Yeah, so that's why I was going right ahead to. So, I mean,
and they call it the greatest story ever told. And yes, it is a great story.
It's beautiful, ain't it? Hey, hold on.
But in the last 36 hours, I have had my complete fill for the year
of the greatest story
sci-fi.
Ever told.
I don't need to watch any more sci-fi anything. I have heard all the sci-fi recounted over and over and over again. And I haven't even turned my television on.
The greatest story
I haven't
ever
been
told.
anywhere. I haven't been anywhere but on Facebook.
And you heard the greatest story? How many times?
No, I've heard all the sci-fi
that you can deal with.
Every sci-fi movie, every sci-fi story I ever heard, ever read, ever went to the movie and watched, every Twilight Zone episode, every Outer Limits episode,
Good God.
I have seen, I have heard recounted for my enjoyment, every story from Buck Rogers to Captain Kirk. Coming from people who are telling me they actually did that themselves.
To Flash Gordon.
Now they're not recounting a story they saw on TV. They're saying this actually happened to them.
Gordon.
I'm going, this is as much sci-fi as I need. Thank you.
Flash Gordon.
A little melodrama, please.
Merciless.
Can somebody do Chocolate Soldier? I need a laugh. If you don't know what that reference is,
Oh my
The
God.
Chocolate Soldier is a 4-act play that was taken out of context from the novel War and Peace. And it's the little love story in the middle there where the girl and the guy, and he goes off to be the gallant soldier, and that's the Chocolate Soldier. Okay? Being that he was all puffed up, but he really wasn't. He didn't have the character or the personality to be a soldier.
No.
But he didn't want to be shamed in the eyes of his friends and
his
peers.
girl.
So, he put on the bravado and went to do something that scared the living hell out of it. Okay?
He became
and
a
that's
man.
the Chocolate Soldier. He was not a real soldier. He was a chocolate
soldier.
But that comes out of War and Peace. And what makes that funny is there's nothing funny about War and Peace. Toy Story was not trying to be a comedic at all. Okay? He was telling you a story a little out of context.
A story within a story.
But it was real events that happened and how they might have unfolded if someone had really wanted to tell the truth rather than make it a comfortable tale of how the kings fell and how the czar, and what all happened. And, it's a very moving accounting. But like all stories, it has to be taken with, the guy is giving it to you. A
grain of salt.
Yeah, they're giving it to you from their perspective. So if they see this as being a justifiable action, then they're going to write it to make it be justifiable. If they think this is an atrocity, then they're going to write it as though to get you to see the atrocity. So you can never read what other people have written and take it beyond the sphere of worthy of consideration. I hadn't thought about it that way before, and maybe you have a point, but it's not what they would call gospel anything. Okay? And I would give you the modern day textbook. Anybody out there, your age to my age, okay? And that's a span of almost 20 years.
Yeah, 20.
Okay, so your age to my age. Go look at your kids or your grandkids' school books when they bring them home from school. They're studying history, American history, that kind of thing. Look at how they caption and summarize everything into these short little squares of information that doesn't tell you a damn thing about what really went on.
Have you noticed that too? You noticed
the entire accomplishment of the 1960s was a hippie movement that culminated in the largest rock concert and the greatest overdose of drugs, potential starvation ever to hit a generation. That's the entire story. No more conversation. We won't talk about the draft. We won't talk about the war. We won't talk about the weathermen. We won't talk about shooting kids down at Kent State and other places. We won't get into women's lib or women's rights. We won't get into all the expansionism that went on in society, both industrial and philosophical, okay, that came out of the 60s. Okay, we can put it all in a little paragraph.
Hold on, a little paragraph.
And show you a picture of a Mustang.
Sam and Dean? Sam and Dean?
Yeah, a Ford Mustang is the symbol of the 60s.
No. We got to have the Love Boat, the Impala.
I had one of those. I had a 69 slant back, 2-door, 3-speed on the column.
Oh, shit.
And I can tell you that lead boat could get from Sedona to Cottonwood, which is about 18 miles. And I could make that trip in under 6 minutes.
I bet you could. Hold on.
It was a straight road in those days. I mean, it was just big open on the desert road. You came out of Sedona, you left the canyon, red walls on either side. Suddenly you're out in the open space, and there's this One lane, it's actually 2 lane, but it's one road, 2 lanes, no dividers, right?
Right.
And it runs straight as an arrow
And
down
now,
across the valley and into what is today Cottonwood.
and now,
And you could do 120, 130. I used to tell the old lady, we were kids, okay? I mean, this was like 1976, right?
hey, hold on. All right, after the story, but Reverend Ed is up next, everybody, and it's almost that time. Cowboy
Oh
Bomb.
shit, we've done it again.
Yeah, we did it again. Here comes Reverend
Well, at any
Ed.
rate, we didn't talk about anything or talk to anything or
Yeah.
into anybody. But for the young people out there, look, it's not your fault. Wake up, smell the roses, be responsible for yourself. Your biggest problem is you're afraid to take on the responsibility of something no one trained you to deal with. Just accept that and train yourself. Rely on you. To the teachers and the people and the parents, hey, I gave birth to that kid. It's my kid. Okay. It's not the state's kid. It's not school's kid. First thing I would tell you is take your damn kids out of school. They have no power if they have no students in their classrooms. Consider that. Okay. They are a union. Regardless of their philosophical standpoint, they are a union. Okay. And they don't exist without our tax dollars. Take your kids out of those schools. They don't get any money from the tax. They count them by how many butts are in chairs. So if your kid ain't at school, they're not getting any money for it. You don't like the way they're teaching your kid? Take your kid out of school and start teaching them yourself. Is there sacrifice involved? You betcha. Remember, take responsibility. It's your situation. If it's all screwed up, it's your own fault. It's because you didn't do anything about it. Other than that, thanks for tuning in. I hope you're all safe. I hope you're all healthy. I hope you're enjoying the spring that's coming in. It's beautiful out here in Arizona. Do not come. Stay where you are. We have enough nuts here already. Don't need no more neighbors. Okay. But in the meantime, remember where you can find us. This is Return of the Thinking Man, right here on the Global Enlightenment Radio Network or Journ TV on YouTube or on Facebook or wherever else he distributes it. And beyond that, I thank you for your time. And remember, play nice with each other. See you next time.